Welcome everyone. I'm hoping I've ironed out all of the technical kinks. Let's see here. It looks like I have. Today I must blast through this quickly because I have a call at 5:30 and I need to be ready for it. So I'm going to get started here, and basically I'm going to rip through this as fast as I can while remaining accurate to my best knowledge. And then I'm going to answer one question and any other questions if I have time, and then I'm going to get going. So here we are. It's time to upgrade. And this is me presenting today, Jason Yee. I'm a trained kinesiologist, former college hockey player, CEO and founder of TrainToPointso, creator of the dominant player system. I've trained and coached thousands of players around the world. And my webinars take place every day at noon or 5 p.m. Pacific. The previews will remain on YouTube, so short 5 to 7 minute previews. And then the full-length ones will go into the Train 2.0 membership area, which you can access by going to train2.0.com/membership. So today's plan is to say hi. That's already done. We're going to go over the plan here. Then we're going to review the dominant player system. We're going to talk about today's lesson, which is going over the accelerated player framework. I'm going to answer your questions if there's time, and then you guys are going to sign up for Argo, the intelligent virtual coach, or a Train 2.0 membership. Reading that. Now, my promise is that I know there's lots of things you could be doing with your time, so I appreciate that you've given me this opportunity to have your time, and I take that very, very seriously, and I promise that this will be valuable to you. Now, the dominant player system, and here's my fresh new logo, is a result of my career, my 20-plus year career as a hockey player, my education as a kinesiologist from University of British Columbia, which is consistently ranked in the top 25 schools in the world, and my profession as a hockey coach. What I realized through these three things was that my effort and the effort of many players does not always equal results. So hockey players are often putting in a ton of effort without getting the results they deserve based on the time and energy that they're putting in and money too. The other thing I found was I got to a point where the common advice was just not effective. And it might work up to a point, but I realized there was actually some digging to be done to unearth more effective information. And so my goal is to design a better system for committed players to follow. One where your effort actually yields the results that you believe you can get, the ones you deserve, and where the advice you're getting is effective. So here is the dominant player pyramid, as I call it, where on the bottom, the things that have the biggest mass have the biggest impact on your game. So I believe that the bulletproof mindset and accelerated learning, by improving those, will make the biggest impact on your game. Next up is the puppeteer framework, which I talk about often, the puppet versus puppeteer framework. In every single situation in hockey, there's always a puppet and a puppeteer. And the players who are puppeteers more often are in control of the game, and they're known for their hockey sense, and they usually have more points, etc. You could be a puppeteer on offense, you can be a puppeteer on defense, and it doesn't matter. But the more you're a puppeteer, the more it matters. And I believe that learning this framework, which is not often taught, very few coaches seem to teach it, the bigger the impact on your game. And then the next thing is upgraded skills and upgraded formulas. So upgraded skills, I believe that there's a lot of skills that are being taught that are just simply being taught they might be skills that make you competent up into a point, but they are not the same skills that the elite of the elite are using. So I aim to learn and teach the upgraded skills, not just the typical skills. Then is the upgraded formulas, which go hand in hand with the upgraded skills. And those are blending together, as Daryl Belfry and Stride Envy would say, blending together the skills into a game-like formula that yields consistent results. Then something I call battle strength, which is essentially off-ice strength and conditioning plus your recovery. And then lastly, your fuel. Now, I'm not saying that fuel or off-ice stuff is not important. What I'm saying is that their impact on your game is not as much as the things that are at the lower parts of the triangle. Now, the reason I say this with a lot of confidence is the best player I've ever played with, I won't name names, but consistently in minor hockey ate, let's just say, a less than optimal diet. Meanwhile, I was cranking home raisins and almonds. And before I get too far, I'm going to check and make sure that people can hear me. There hasn't been any complaints so far, so that's good. Yes, so my diet was optimized, but it made less of an impact than these things here: bulletproof mindset, accelerated learning framework, puppeteer framework, blah, blah, blah. So that is my argument for that. With all aspects of the dominant player pyramid, the first and most important thing is awareness that it exists. That's why I've made this as visual and as vivid as possible. The second is mastery, so getting competent in all areas. So that's the next most important step. And the third is consistency, so applying it again and again over different situations. In game practice, tryout, whatever, you name it. So that is the dominant player pyramid, and I will review that often. So today's lesson is in the bottom right, accelerated learning framework. We're going to talk about that really quick, what that is, what that represents for Train 2.0, and we're going to talk about transitional skating, something I call transition theory. Now, why the accelerated learning framework? This is a quote that stood out to me when I was younger, and it goes like this. Well, in our country, said Alice, still panting a little, you generally get to somewhere else if you run very fast for a long time, as we've been doing. A slow sort of country, said the Queen. Now here, you see, it takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place. If you want to get somewhere else, you must run at least twice as fast as that. So what this signified to me is hockey. Everyone is trying to improve to get to that next spot. You and let's say there's 3 other people trying to compete for a spot on a team. You and those people are all training, all working out, all developing their skills to get better, so that you can outcompete everyone to get that spot. So your rate of improvement matters more than just really anything else. So that's why I say rate of learning matters. That's why the accelerated learning framework is at the bottom of the pyramid. And the whole idea is to get better faster. I'm just going to again check and make sure my audio seems to be good. No complaints so far. That's good. So how do you develop such a thing as the accelerated learning framework? Well, success leaves footprints. So the 3 people in this area that I aim to learn from, I guess implicitly the quote "success leaves footprints" I believe is either from Tim Ferriss or Phil Hahn, or not Tim Ferriss, I think Tony Robbins. So implicitly Tony is one of the experts too. But Tim Ferriss wrote a book called The 4-Hour Chef. It's all about accelerated learning. I borrow heavily from that. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, and I wrote that name from memory, so someone can let me know if I did that correctly. And then Anders Ericsson, the father of the 10,000 hours rule. So that's how I developed it. And I've put it together for hockey players because such a framework does not normally exist. So how you're going to get better, how you're going to accelerate, get better faster, is with feedback. You're going to improve your type of feedback through visual feedback. You're going to use expert models. You're going to work with an expert coach, so you're going to get instant feedback. And you're going to engage, you're going to do skill breakdowns, and you're going to make things flow. And I'm going to talk about that a bit. So if we're talking about practice, there's a few things to know. There's a difference between purposeful and deliberate practice, and this is the key to whether you're in the NHL or you're in the AHL, I believe. So, and so too does famous researchers such as Mr. Anders Ericsson. So the difference between purposeful practice and deliberate practice is purposeful practice is kind of what you would normally think practice is. It is, goal driven, it's directed, it's focused, all the things you think you're supposed to do. Deliberate practice, on the other hand, is a step above. Why? Because you're working with a master coach. You're working with an expert coach who has either done it themselves and or has helped others do it themselves. So they can anticipate your roadblocks, they can push you and challenge you, and they can do things like give you instant feedback, which we'll talk about in a second. So when Anders Ericsson was talking about practice, he was talking about deliberate practice. He was talking about 10,000 hours of deliberate practice, not purposeful practice. Because deliberate practice is so much more effective and so much more efficient, and we'll explain why. So the first part of the accelerated learning framework is, are you working with an expert coach? Now, it doesn't have to be TrainToPointso, but you should be working with an expert coach. That would be the first step to accelerating your development. The second thing is the amount of feedback. You'd be surprised, most people don't value feedback, and drills and practices and games have very, very, very little amounts of feedback. The only feedback you get is when you mess up or when you score a goal. Increasing the amount of feedback that you're getting through visual feedback, so video is one of the most important, or through an expert coach who can talk you through things more often and give you better quality feedback and more feedback, is going to increase your rate of learning. So when we talk about quality of feedback, the two things that are most important are, is it visual? Because most often we're getting auditory feedback, so people telling us things. But today you can use your iPhone, your iPad, or if you're an Android user, your Pixel, to take videos and share it easily and get enriched data. And then the other thing with the quality of your feedback is, are you using an expert model? So are you watching, your 8-year-old cousin take a slap shot, or are you watching Shea Weber take a slap shot, or Eric Carlson take a slap shot, or Stamkos take a slap shot? Using expert models is going to accelerate your learning, because when you see them do it, the same circuits in your brain light up that allow you to do it. So Train 2.0 combines all of this, combines visual feedback with expert modeling to create the accelerated learning framework, because you're going to see what they're doing and then compare it with what you're doing, and this will light up your brain for rapid learning. The last part is adequate challenge. If you find yourself, and by adequate I mean not too big and not too little, and we're going to talk about this in chunking and sequencing. If you find yourself getting frustrated while learning anything, that means the challenge is too great. Anxious, nervous, same thing. The challenge is too big. If you find yourself bored, the challenge is too small. Both of these are not optimal. Optimal is when you're just slightly pushed out of your comfort zone. And the best way to do this is with chunking and sequencing. Remember when I said a few slides ago, breakdowns and flows? Chunking and sequencing is the best way to do this. So chunking means taking a very complicated skill and breaking it down into the smallest parts that someone can effortlessly achieve. And then sequencing is building those chunks on top of each other from simple to complex, so that you're effortlessly going from a very basic movement, and all of a sudden you've sequenced them together to create a more complex movement. Now this is where an expert coach comes in, because they have already done this skill or taught this skill, so they can determine the best chunks to do first so that you can sequence on them later. Ben Hogan wrote a great book on this for golf, not about this, but it's a great example of how to chunk and sequence. He starts with the grip of the golf club and then works his way from the grip to the arms, to the shoulders, to the twist, to the legs, and then to the full swing. And in a matter of about 45 minutes of reading the book, you can make yourself a pretty reasonable golfer purely because of the way that he chunks down the complex skill into very basic skills and then sequences one skill on top of another to make a very complex skill happen effortlessly. So what to do if you want to accelerate your learning? 1, hire a master coach. This is going to lead to a lot of downstream improvements, such as improving the quality and quantity of your feedback. If you're working with an expert coach, they're likely going to use video, and if they're not, you can ask them to, and they can be your expensive tripod. So you get visual feedback. The other thing you want is instant feedback, because you're going to get a neural connection if you get instant feedback instead of if you are having to consciously process this feedback later on. So if you're working with a master coach, when you get it right, when you get the movement correct, they can give you instant feedback. The third thing is expert modeling. So with Train 2.0, what we do, like I said, is we have a huge library of NHL video clips where we watch your video, compare it to NHL's, and you can get the benefits of visual feedback and expert modeling all at the same time. And design sequences and your chunking to get just the perfect amount of challenge. Just those little challenges that are going to keep you in the flow state, keep you in the zone, instead of getting you frustrated or bored, which is going to completely sidetrack your learning. So if your sequences are not designed correctly, then you simply reduce your learning rate to 0 because you're running up against a wall. When you have an expert coach, so someone who has the expertise, they're going to layer on these skills subtly and effortlessly so that your learning rate goes from 0, ramming your head up against a wall, to amplified, and you're like literally in the fast lane. So these are the best ways to get expert coaching, to accelerate your learning. So if you follow these steps, hiring a master coach, improving the quality and quantity of your feedback, and design challenges or chunks and sequences, I guarantee your learning rate is going to at least 10x. And I say this with complete confidence because the funny thing is that most coaches are simply doing none of these things. They haven't done visual feedback. They don't have a good focus on instant feedback. They don't provide expert models. They don't think about sequences and chunking, and they're not worried about flow state. So if you simply add one of these things, it's going to boost your learning rate dramatically. But if you add all of these things, it is going to take your learning to another level. And I experienced this firsthand myself with my own hockey career, and then again with all the players that I work with. Their transformations are usually astounding to people who meet the players, before and after. So that's what I have today. I'm going to check in on questions to see if there is any, and there are none right now. So I'm going to quickly go into the transitional skating thing that I was talking about, and then I need to go. So bear with me as I locate these clips. And just as a reminder, I am on every day from, or I aim to be on every day Friday. Every day noon, noon and 5 p.m. The previews will remain on YouTube for about a week, and then I'm going to, and then they're going to move into the membership area, which is a pretty good deal because it's pay what you want, what you think my material is valued to you, and I also appreciate your generosity in this because 10% of the membership fees go towards kids sport so that all kids can play. So I had a question regarding transitions and how to transition smoothly from, I think, backward to forward, but if not, the same principles apply. And in this drill, what you often see a lot of players doing is when transitioning from forward to backwards is they do a couple things. They either do stomping, they stomp up and down, or they heed the advice of coaches and they have what quote unquote fast feet, right? They're told never to stop your feet moving, and they're told have fast feet, be fast feet. But what they end up doing instead is their feet move quote unquote fast, but their feet don't do anything. They're sliding around the ice, they're stomping up and down, they're moving their feet a bunch, but they're not actually going anywhere. One way to gain speed is to do this. So in this situation here, Kai is receiving the puck, and just before he receives the puck, you can see he's loading his left leg. You can see he's actually loading this left leg. Then what he's going to do is, as he's receiving that puck, you can see he's leaned right over. So he went from being in a completely centered position. Come on, MacBook. Right, so you can see he's in a very centered position, but what he's doing is he's from his core, he's leaning right over, right? So his feet are here and his center of gravity is here. That's going to allow gravity and centripetal force to pull him this way automatically. Meanwhile, he's also keeping the weight on his heels, not on his toes. This is probably antithetical to a lot of coaches out there. And watch how, because he leans and because he keeps his weight on his heels, watch how far he gets in one step. Literally, this was where he was a second ago, and in one step, he goes from here to here. Right? This is not due to aggressive strength and conditioning or fast feet. This is 100% due to mastery of skating and understanding how to smoothly transition. So for people who have questions on that, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to have to quickly run through. With skating, could you talk about stages of the blade involved with different pushes, i.e. where's your weight in different foot pushes as you're on your heel, your belly foot? Lucas, that is a great question. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to run today, but I'll leave you with this. One is that, well, first off, I will be on tomorrow at 12:40-ish with a special guest, one of my friends, Alana Kammerbridge from Factory Hockey. And I can answer this question then. The other thing is I have the answer to this question definitely in the membership area. I'm just trying to think of where. In the Jack Eichel thing. So I would check out the TrainToPointso membership area. Like I said, it requires a credit card purely to make sure that you are over 18 or have the approval of someone who's over 18, and then it's pay what you want, and I appreciate all generosity on your guys' part. I have the answers in there. I'll give you a hint that when you are pretty much in all low speed situations, and I don't mean low force situations, I mean low speed situations, you want to be going toe to heel. When you are doing a straight ahead stride at top speed is when you want to push with your toe. Most people do not coach this way, but I do, and you actually get way more control when you push toe to heel instead of heel to toe in your low speed transition scenarios. So Lucas, I'm sorry that I have to run today. I do have a call in a little bit. So I hope that answers your question for now, but I do encourage you to go to the membership area. So to finish off here, I'd love it if you guys also checked out Argo, which is a virtual coach bot that I've created to become a dominant player. It's the only intelligent virtual coach in the world, I believe, and it's customized to you. It learns your preferences, and you can text it right now. And then Lucas, for you and anyone else who's watching, you can check out the Train 2.0 membership where you can access all my online camps where I've got tons of video. You can access all the daily webinars, their archives. I have a live training with all my members every week, every Tuesday. You have access to my NHL clip library, which is a Dropbox folder with every single one of my clips. And then you're going to get access to the dominant player system checklist so you can guide your development. So the membership is pay what you want and you can cancel anytime, which I think is a pretty good deal. And access that now before I come to my senses and make you guys pay the full price. But I want to make sure that's open to people who are watching right now. You can check out train2.0.com/membership, or you can text Argo to get started with the Intelligent Virtual Coach, and just simply text the word Argo to one of these numbers. Screen capture it now before I shut this down. But there's a US and Canadian number for you guys. And I promise you, when you get started with Argo, you're going to have a lot of fun. I have strength and conditioning programs on there. I have nutrition. I have psychology to help you get into the zone, recovery to help you recover from your games. And with that, I must take off. And thank you guys very much for watching today. I will be back tomorrow with the Landcumber merch, and I will see you guys then.